So here we're looking for an answer choice that is equivalent to this expression. And so when we're just looking at this, first thoughts might be to, just do this simple, straightforward fraction simplification, like, first term over the bottom plus second term over the bottom, but that doesn't really get you anywhere. You can also try factoring stuff out on the top and bottom, dividing it out, but again, it just doesn't cancel out and doesn't give you the answer choices that or doesn't give you any one of the answer choices. So when you encounter something like that, it means you got to do long division. And so I know long division sucks, but it's not as bad, I think, as most people feel like it is. I mean, so let's just go ahead and do it. I'll show you how it's done. So you put whatever's on the top into here, right? So 4x squared plus 6x, and then whatever you're dividing by out here. And from here, it's a very sort of menial, straightforward process. You're asking yourself, how many times does 4, so the biggest sort of x term, I'm sorry, not biggest x term, but the thing with the largest exponent of x out here, how many times does that go into the term with the biggest x exponent in here? So how many times does 4x go into 4x squared? X times, right? Because if you multiply x by 4x, you get 4x squared. So that means this thing divided by this is x. So once you establish what that is, you take whatever you got up here, so in this case x, and you multiply it by both terms in here, and you write it down. So x times 4x, that's 4x squared, and then x times 2, which is just plus 2x. And don't forget, after you write it down, you're actually subtracting this. You're subtracting this from whatever's in here. So let's see what that is. So that'd be 4x squared minus 4x squared, so that's 0. Then you have 6x minus 2x. So you get 4x right here. So what do you do next? You repeat the same process that you did before. You're asking yourself, how many times does this big power go into this thing? Right here we see just once, right? 4x times 1 is 4x. So you're going to do plus 1. I know it looks a little bit weird that I'm sort of writing this off to the side. I'm just making sure to write each term up here in line with its sort of corresponding power here. So I'm writing the x to the 1 power with this x to the 1 power. And in this case, we don't have any constants, so but this is where they would be. So we established that 4x goes into 4x once. So after you figure that out, you repeat what you did last time. You do 1 times 4x and then 1 times 2 and sort of repeat the process that we did to get this. So 1 times 4x is 4x, so let's write that below. And then 1 times 2 is 2, so plus 2, and don't forget you're also subtracting this. So it's 4x minus 4x, which is again 0, and then there's no constant term here, so it's just 0 minus 2, which is just negative 2. Okay. We then ask ourselves the same question we'd asked ourselves before. How many times does this big power go into this? Well, now we reach a point where 0, right? This doesn't have this. It has a lower power than this. This has no x's, while this has one x. So if that's the case, this can't go into this a single time. So what does that make this? A remainder. But this is how we express remainders. So again, so this divided by this, we got x plus 1, and then we're going to have to use our remainder. To express remainders, whatever you get at the bottom here, you just put it over, so negative 2, you just put it over whatever you're dividing. So over 4x squared plus 6x. This is your remainder. So how would we express the answer for this problem? It would be what we got from our actual division, right? X plus 1, and then just plus your remainder. In this case, our remainder is negative, so it would be minus 2 over 4x squared plus 6x. So this is our answer, and this is answer choice D. So let me sort of recap. I know this is probably a little bit new, so let me recap what we did here and why. So we look at our expression, and we see that by doing our sort of, again, usual straightforward fraction simplification steps, we don't actually get where we want to go. We don't get any of the answer choices. We don't simplify it very much. So what do? We decided to do long division. How is long division done? So we write down what you're dividing on the inside, what you're dividing by on the outside, and then it's again sort of a repetitive process of you take the thing with the largest power. By that I mean largest exponent of x, so just 4x. If there was like a x squared term, you would use the x squared term. Then you take on the inside the largest power of x term. So again, if there was like some x cubed term, you would be looking at that. And so you take these two and you figure out how many times does this one go into this one. We established that in this case it was just x times, because x times 4x is 4x squared. So you write down your term, or like you write down the answer to that question. It might not always be x, might be something else. So in this case x, and then to continue the problem, you take whatever you got and you multiply it by both terms on your outside to get, and you write them down right here and you subtract them. So it would be x times 4x, so it would be 4x squared, x times 2, 2x, and you subtract the 2. And then as you go, you just keep repeating that process, except you're asking only the biggest power. You're not worried about the 2. You're just looking at 4x. How many times does this thing go into this? Again, if after this you got something with more terms, like you've got like 4x plus 2, you're still just asking how many times does this biggest power go into this biggest power. And then finally, don't forget that if you get a remainder like this, where this doesn't go into this a single time, you just put that remainder over your original thing that you're dividing, and that's it. And you just add it to your answer. That's how you get your remainder.